There was one guy I was dealing with getting a little bit pissy over the kid interrupting the call thing, and I'm like, appreciate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please. Yeah.
My bad. Please continue. It's very alliterative.
They are going to be the ones powering the experiences that every customer has.
Preference has power. I'm pretty sure Cato would say to me when I do every show, stop.
I think he would.
Those pieces are popping. Wait till you get the invoice.
Here. I have a question. When's the last time you danced? When's the last time you laughed?
Now. I don't want to dance with you.
When's the last time you flew a kite?
Toasted Oreo.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're insane.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another day in paradise. Today, you get to find out all about the PESO or the PEON, or, well, you'll find out about the PEON in, again, the P's are popping right now in the soliloquy, but I hope you are well. It's a crazy day today. It's a day where I'm doing a show, and then right after this, I'm doing another show, a masterclass for the Association of National Advertisers. I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm going to tell you how you can actually attend it if you want to as well. Everything you wanted to know about social audio, but were too afraid to ask. Well, today is, it's National OK Day. So, okay, it's National OK Day. Okay? You know, the Queen rules UK. Well, I mean, not well. Flowers rule bouquet, but okay is possibly the most used word around the world. Think about it. And the origin of the word is not known, but according to some historians, the expression may have come about as an abbreviation of the term oral correct in the United States, believe it or not, in the late 1800s. And I would imagine that the word correct must mean correct, right? It sounds very Dutch. It sounds very almost Afrikaans, maybe a bit of German. Oral correct. Everything is good. So I hope that everything is good with you and you are having a great day. You are going to have an amazing day because I have an amazing show in store for you today. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the Jaffe coin. The Jaffe coin is actually doing fairly well. When I got my Jaffe coin, my creator coin, it was about 34 cents. It is now, as of today, $1.54. Now, it's not about the price. It's about the value. It's about the value being created. What you see is that 82 different people are supporting the Jaffe economy. And it's very transparent and very public because it's on the blockchain. So you can actually, like, I love seeing this. And I love seeing the fact that people are really supporting me and supporting this ecosystem, this community that we are building. So much so that I have a little offer for you. I call it the 2-for-1. And this actually shows you that I'm a really bad businessman and a terrible at math. Because all I'm basically saying to you is if you send me one Jaffe coin, I will send you back 2 in return. And there are no strings attached. All you got to do something though. You got to go to rally.io, buy at least one Jaffe coin, send me one or more because tipping is appreciated. I have done 223 different interviewees, about 250 shows in the last year. But even if you just send me one coin, make sure you indicate show. In the notes section, I will send you back 2 in return as a token of my gratitude, because it's not just my time in terms of doing the show for you. It's your time that you have chosen to spend with me. And there are a whole bunch of other ways that you can engage right now. I'm always thinking of ways. And if you have ways, I would love to hear them as well. But right now, if you want a shout out on the show, if you want a promo on the show, if you even want a 10-minute interview that you can use for your own business development or your reel or your own publicity purposes, I would be only too happy to do that. And of course, if you just want a signed copy of Built to Suck, right? If you want a copy of the book, personally autographed, I can do that for you as well. Tom Morris is at the beach. He says all is okay. And he says he wishes that he had put $100,000. Now you're just playing with me and being mean, Tom. Why don't you put it in now, Tom? And who knows what it may be worth one day. Imagine all those people that poo-pooed Bitcoin and sold Bitcoin a little bit early. Life is a beach, Tom. So get involved. And Glenn is very happy that his money is doing good. So enough about creator coins. As I was saying earlier, I'm doing a show. I'm doing a show, not just myself, but Richie Glassberg, Jeremiah Oyang, Roxy Ndebumadu, Mr. Brian Fanzo himself, and Scott Monty are going to be helping me. And that is at 2 o'clock today. And if you want to join, you can join. All you got to do is go to my link tree and you will find out everything that you need in terms of being able to register for the event or just attend the event as well. It is free. It is free. So again, no strings attached. And it's going to be on YouTube. I'm actually going to do it as an episode of the show. So it's not just what we say, but how we say it as well. But right now, talking about what we say and how we say it, a person that really understands the space, understands context, understands tone, understands the ability to translate intent into action. Gini Dietrich, who is the founder and author of Spin Sucks, just love it. I mean, listen, I wrote a book called Built to Suck. How am I not going to love anything or anyone that has the word suck in their title or in their branding as well? So Gini today, of course, Tom Peters yesterday, we had massive technical issues, but who cares? And I just wish you could have seen what happened behind the scenes when the cameras weren't rolling. It was just truly, truly special and magical, and I will never forget it for the rest of my life. Jay Summit tomorrow. Sean will be debuting maybe a little trial. What happens when the show moves to 9 p.m. at night? And then what happens when the show moves to 9 a.m. In the morning? So we'll be doing a late night show on Thursday, an early morning show on Friday. Will be interesting to see which one you prefer, or the 12 noon slot as well. At the moment, 3 J's, Jason Falls, Jay Bear, and Joe Delagrave, looking for another guest still whose name begins with J. You can see there's a tremendous method to the madness, and I emphasize the word madness. So not too many birthdays. There's Dario Okrent. There is Julian Peltz on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Kelly Kenny, Christopher Great, and Joe DeLuca. Happy birthday, guys. Have a great day. But now, it is time to get into our seated soliloquy. And the seated soliloquy today is called Caring and Sharing. I think I will give you a different background for it just to make it a little bit more interesting. So a peso for your thoughts. I mean, it used to be a Jaffe for your thoughts. Now it's a peso for your thoughts. Gini Dietrich invented the PESO model. Now, PESO stands for PESO, stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned. I actually didn't know that she was the genius behind that. So maybe it's time to retire my snarkier PEON model, paid, earned, owned, and non. That's the difference, right? Gini's shared is replaced with my non. Now, non-media was my way of wagging a grumpy finger at marketers saying, get off my lawn. And not every interaction has to have your dirty, grubby, muddy paws all over it. Ernie Kovach, a television personality from the 50s, once said, television, a so-called medium because it is neither rare nor well done. If he were alive today, he'd probably say that about most mediums, including but not limited to social media, and yes, even Clubhouse. The word media is the giveaway. Media is oil, as in greasy oil, as in snake oil. It is not of the people, it belongs to the machine. Social, on the other hand, is water. Without it, we just cannot survive. But as we all know, water and oil do not mix. And yet, we expected somehow a miraculous business chemical reaction when we put the two together. Soon, Gini and I will have a conversation. Is it paid? No, she's not being paid, although I will send her a Jaffe coin afterwards as a thank you, nor is she paying me in Jaffe coins or in pesos. nor is any sponsor paying for today's show. But if anyone is interested, so is it earned then? Well, that depends on the shared part, I guess. And also if I do a good enough job as your host. Is it owned? Absolutely. The show archive lives on my YouTube channel, which is rented land, I suppose, but it also lives on my hard drive. To me, what is happening with the show right now is non-media, human to human, H to H, as Brian Kramer would say. In its purest form, it's about connection, genuine connection. In a somewhat normal world, non-media might as well be a synonym for word of mouth. It's conversation, communication, collaboration. Sure, there are going to be many brand mentions in these conversations, including, but not limited to, recommendations, endorsements, even referrals. But they are not necessarily brand-centric, brand-controlled, or brand-coerced. We would all do very well to remember that. When the dust settles, this is not about metrics, spreadsheets, data, optimization, and ROI, but rather about consumers, or rather customers, or rather community, or rather human beings doing what they do best, caring and sharing. And as a sidebar, I actually wrote that in Join the Conversation back in 2007. We're moving from command and control to caring and sharing. But I cannot wait to hear what she has to say, because as you know, the soliloquies are always written with the inspiration and with my guest in mind. So who is Gini Dietrich? Gini is the founder and author of Spin Sucks. She's the host of the Spin Sucks podcast and the author of Spin Sucks, the book. She's the creator of the PESO model, or the PESO model, and has crafted a certification for it in partnership with Syracuse University. She's run and grown an agency for the past 15 years and is co-author of Marketing in the Round, co-host of Inside PR, and co-host of the Agency Leadership podcast. She very cheekily turned around and said that she was nervous because she was on with a celebrity, but I think we all know that the real celebrity is Gini. So Gini, welcome to the show.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here. And I am nervous because I'm on with a celebrity.
So how about two celebrities? Or,
okay, fine.
You know, PESO meet PEON, PEON meet PESO.
Right. Yeah, if you ask my 7-year-old, she would not agree with that.
You know what? I none of my kids would agree with that either until I eventually get, you know, some kind of. I suppose when Jamal Mashburn was on the show, they kind of cared a little bit more.
Sure.
But it's funny, we still live in such a celebrity-driven, you know, world, and I've found actually some of my best conversations on the show are not with celebrities, but they're actually just with normal people who have, I would say, ordinary people that have extraordinary stories of conquering and countering tremendous adversity, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. That definitely makes sense.
So I see a lot of comments going on right there. I'm just going to leave the peanut gallery to talk amongst themselves, at least my regulars. For people that are new to the show, I would never call you a peanut or a gallery as well. We're going to focus on Gini today. And Gini, let's start off with some fun facts about you. And I got to say, there are a lot of interesting fun facts about you, starting with the fact that, I mean, this is kind of crazy, right? You see dead people. Now, I mean, we got to take a step back here because this story, the context behind the story is a realization that you came to find out about yourself, you know, over the last 12 plus months, which is that you're an empath. So why don't you start there? Tell us about this realization or this this recognition and how somehow being an empath came to the point where you now predict people dying.
When you put it that way, it's very creepy. It's very creepy. I'm not going to lie.
Just don't think of me. Don't talk to me. Don't dream of me.
Yeah, exactly. My mom's like, stop talking to me. Don't call me. It's funny because I mean, we've all in the last 13 months gone through something extraordinary. And I think we've all tried to figure out what's important, where our boundaries are, what we can continue to do, what we need to revise. Do we still, when this is all over, do we want to get back on planes and go all over the country or the world speaking? Like, these are the things that we've all of us have been thinking about. And through that experience, like everyone else, I've been trying to figure that out as well. And the interesting thing about me is that I sleep. I don't have any problem sleeping. And part of that, I think, is because I'm a cyclist. And so I work out a lot. So by the time even nighttime falls, my body is done. It's just done. So I've never had a problem sleeping. But what has happened in the last year is that I've started, in the beginning, I was starting to solve issues and challenges. So if something was for a client that I was trying to figure out, or there was something with my team that I was trying to figure out, I was doing it in my sleep. I was figuring it out in my sleep, which is great because now I can fill my time while I sleep, right?
Nice.
But then, sorry.
No, I was going to say nice. I mean, like,
right?
All those get rich quick schemes that say make money while you sleep, they actually were being serious.
Yeah, you can do it while you sleep. But then I discovered that, this was on accident. I had a dream about Liz Strauss, and I hadn't talked to Liz in a few years. And I thought, that's strange. I'm just going to give her a call. And I did. And we had a nice conversation. And, this, I don't know if I can tell this. We had a nice conversation. We caught up. She was struggling. I was struggling in different ways. But, we had this nice conversation. And 2 weeks later, she passed away. And at the time, I was just like, wow, I mean, I hadn't thought of Liz in years. She was here in Chicago. I hadn't seen her in years. It was just one of those things. And then it happened again with somebody else. And then in December, my business mentor got the disease that I'm not allowed to say, Google, and went into the hospital. And I was having conversations with him every day, and either on text or phone, and he was fine. And about a week before he passed away, I had a dream about him. And the dream was that we were walking through a garden and we were talking about work, and he was telling me all the things that he thought I could do going forward. And then a week, by December 6th, he had passed away. And it's been this really strange experience where, at first it was strange, and then it was just coincidence. And my husband thinks I'm freaking nuts. He's like, yeah, whatever. Like, don't tell people that. You're weird. It's just coincidence. It's not anything. And maybe it's not, but my mom keeps saying, please don't call me. Please don't have a dream about me. Don't call me. But I think part of it is that what I've discovered in the last year is that I am an empath. And because of that, I am feeling and I'm experiencing something extraordinary, I would say, with the people around me. And not just the people around me, but the people that I've been in contact with, or friends that I've, had for years, or acquaintances like Liz that I knew in a past life. And then we, hadn't seen each other in years, and then we reconnected. And it's this weird experience. And I don't know. I mean, I don't believe in all the psychic, and I don't believe in that stuff, but it has been a strange coincidence that I will have these dreams, and then 10 days to 2 weeks later, the person has passed away.
I mean, look, on one hand, I was thinking of the typical Jewish mother that would say, you never call, you never write, In this case, it's the opposite.
Please don't.
Thank you for not calling. Right. Thank you for not writing.
I'm happy not to hear from you.
Look, I can't. I mean, besides the fact that you are clearly of a supernatural plane, and you transcend the mundane and the mediocre of us normal mortals on this earth. I would surmise, if I had to kind of like really just put this out there, put myself out there, that being an empath, being so connected and in tune, what's really happening is the inevitability is there, right? Mm-hmm, death is inevitable. Mortality is inevitable.
Sure.
You're just more super aware of it. And I think what has actually happened in a way over the last 12 months is that we've become a little desensitized to it all. thoughts and prayers, right?
Interesting.
Thoughts and prayers
Yeah.
we're just going through it right now with yet another mass shooting, in the US.
Yeah.
And eventually thoughts and prayers just becomes a, hope all is well, the first thing you write in an email. And I think what's really happened for you is this awakening where maybe it was always there, but you weren't as aware of it. And now it is just super, super connected to you and a part of who you are and who you've become.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for sure. And I think that's a really good perspective because it makes me feel less crazy. But it definitely, when you are an empath or when you are connected or super sensitive to other people and their feelings, and whatever you want to call that, I think you're right that the past year has really created the opportunity for me to start to pay attention to those signals that
And
I
I
get.
think, yeah, and I think it's funny. I mean, this ability to be sensitized or sensitive, right?
Mhm.
I mean, they're two different ideas, and yet they're connected. And I think maybe, I guess, the wish that we all have coming out of this is not to lose that empathy, right?
I would
Not to
agree.
lose
Yep.
this heightened sense
Mhm.
of being connected to everyone around us. By the way, Tom says he had a friend, so just so you don't think you're alone, he had a friend getting his doctorate in Edinburgh
Weird.
who started having dreams about relatives getting hurt or dying. Every single dream came true within weeks.
Huh.
And he adds, by the way, you'll hopefully meet him in the after show, which will be in Clubhouse today. He said, empath and Jungian collective unconscious and time being weirder than we think equals Ginny's dreams. You're getting a free therapy session here. I'd wanted to tell me so I could pack my bags and get ready. So,
Fascinating. That's actually fascinating. I'm gonna have to start to look into this because I mean, it's interesting. It's creepy and it's crazy, but it's also fascinating.
It's creepy and crazy, but no more creepy and crazier than life and the
Fair.
reality that is our life right now. Well, here's another thing that I found very interesting about you. In fact, your fun facts I could do the whole show on, and maybe I will do the whole show on, which is there was a phrase that I loved in your description of your failed aspirations and dreams of becoming a prima ballerina. And it is characterized by this phrase: what motivates someone on the other team? So I would love for you to tell us this story. It's a story about your family, about the phrase. Put it in context of you doing the mid-air splits. And I think there are some really, really interesting ideas that come out of this that we can talk about.
So I danced all the way through college and I wanted to become a prima ballerina. I'm small enough, short enough that I could, I mean, and certainly I had the talent to be able to do that. And I danced all the way through college with the idea that that's what I would do. And at the time I was just, dating my husband and we were playing with his family. We were playing, I don't even remember, maybe Life or something where, you take a card. I can't even remember what game it was. You take a card and the card was my now sister-in-law got the card and it said, what motivates someone on the other team? And she said about me, Jenny's motivated by money. And it was one of those things where it was like, yes, I am. And it really started to gel because I decided that even though I had danced all the way through college, and this was my thing, like even when I was little, I wanted to be a prima ballerina. But then I realized how much money or how little money they make. And I am ashamed to say that I am very motivated by money. And the passion didn't override that. And so I would like to think that I've calmed down a little bit since then. Certainly money still motivates me, but not in the same way. But I completely abandoned a passion of mine because I was more interested in making money.
So the interesting thing here is, I mean, again, connected to empathy, right? Being able to especially if you're trying to put yourself in the shoes of the other team. But there's so many interesting use cases. One is competition. Two is even when we think about politics, how do we mend? How do we bridge the divide? How do we heal? So there's definitely the walking a mile in our opponent's moccasins. But what I love about this phrase is the fact that you actually, it's not just trying to be them or to think like them. It's trying to understand what motivates them. You mentioned the word passion, right? It wasn't actually money. It was passion. It's what you really were passionate about. In this case, money,
Sure.
or at least the allegation of which. But had you, there are many people that are prima ballerinas, and there are many people that are teachers as well. And I can tell you, as a teacher now at West Virginia University, I'm definitely not doing it for the money.
Right.
Quite frankly, whatever the minimum wage is right now would be a pay increase when I look at the hours. But I love it.
Right.
But I love it. And although would I want to do it full time? I would, but I don't know how I would make a living. And so it's a tough thing. So I found this to be very intriguing, this idea of what motivates someone on the other team. And I wonder how often we actually take the time to really think about the other team's motivations.
I think it's a really interesting thought. And I remember probably 2007, 2008, we were working with a client and they were trying to introduce social media internally to the team so that we could use it externally from a communication standpoint. And we just couldn't get anybody motivated to do it. And they were like, okay, so there's this Twitter thing and Facebook. Okay, all right, but it's really just for college kids, and I don't know why I'd use it for my business, for work. And if I take this risk and it doesn't work, then am I going to lose my job? And we really started to think about what motivated them individually. So what motivates somebody? And I think it goes to Daniel Pink's book Drive, where he said money. He talks about how money is actually not the motivator, because you could stick somebody in the middle of a warehouse and have them stare at a wall all day, every day, and pay them $1 million, and they'd go crazy, right? It doesn't equate. So it's not money that's the motivator. So we really started to look at each individual and what motivated them. And for some, it was, having a nice evening out once a month with their spouse. And for others, it was, I remember there was one young lady that was dying for a $200 flat iron for her hair, but she just didn't have the disposable income to be able to pay for it. So we started to look at those kinds of things that we could gift people so that we could keep them motivated. And that process of helping the leadership team of our client figure out what motivated their employees, I think sticks even to this day. What is it that's going to motivate somebody to maybe take a little bit of risk in their job?
I mean, I am reminded by one of the more familiar cliches or lines in marketing, which I hate. I mean, I hate that it's true, or if it's true, which is the chief marketing officer of today got to where they got to not by managing risk, but by mitigating it. And that may be the motivation. It is what it is, which is, I go into a casino. My goal is I play not to lose as opposed to playing to win. I would rather lose $100 and walk out and know that, my shirt is still on my back, than hit the big one. And that's what motivates me. And you can try and sell me on anything else. It's not going to work, because it's just not, it doesn't gel.
Fascinating. Yeah.
All right. So I want to move on, and you've got this amazing blog. I mean, the content that you create is just terrific. I mean, not only PR related, we'll get into PEONs and PESOs in a moment, but I think this is a very important, pertinent, not just article, but just this journey and this introspection. You spoke about how you came into, like, a year ago, let's call it 2019. You thought one thing about women having it all, especially with the momentum shifting towards more inclusivity, theoretically, academically, intellectually, and practically. But then the last 12 months, there was a little bit of I think you would call it maybe a rude awakening, or a moment of reckoning. And I would love for you to set that up and talk about where you are now. Are you doubling down on this? Have you rethought? Have you done the pivot, the shift, and or the swivel? I would love for you to set that up, and then we can discuss.
Actually, when I wrote this blog post for International Women's Day, I was doing some research, and I discovered that last year, 3 million women left the workforce. And in December alone, 100% of the jobs that were lost were to women. And when I think about that from my own experience, and it has been challenging, to say the least. I have many friends who have taken sabbaticals, leaves of absence from work. I have many friends who have just decided that they have to just stop working because it's too much. And not to say that men aren't participating in childcare and homeschooling and all of that. The statistics show that the burden is falling mostly to women. Right. And I certainly have experienced that as well. My husband's business went from like all of a sudden last year it just took off. And so he hasn't had the ability to have the flexibility that I have had, partly because we lost some clients last year. But partly because, it's more innate, I think, for women to be able to do that. And it's been a real challenge. It's not, it hasn't been easy. And I remember there was a pivotal point where it was probably May. So we'd been in it for a couple of months, and I was teaching first grade on top of, clients had said we need to put a pause on things. And at the same time, we were bringing on new clients to do crisis communications because of everything that was happening in the world. And so there was all of this turmoil just from a business perspective. And then I was teaching first grade. And there was this pivotal moment for me when I went upstairs and I hid myself in the master bedroom closet. I closed the door and I called the first grade teacher, the real first grade teacher. And I was like, I cannot do this. I don't know. And I remember, God bless Miss Fairchild, she talked me off the ledge. So here she is, she's dealing with these first graders that are actually, she's actually having to teach over Zoom, which she's had to figure out as well. And then she's having to deal with people like me who are like, I can't do this. Like, she won't sit still. She's in my lap. She's got the hamster out in my hair. Like, how do you, and I remember saying to her saying to me, there are two things that you need to focus on: math and reading. If she does those during the day or with you at night, we are great. If she doesn't show up for Zoom, or she's sitting on her head, or whatever it happens to be, it's fine. And it took a long time for me to get to the point where it was okay. And just yesterday, she's sitting here next to me and they're doing math and she's not paying attention. She's got her hamster out, which she's not supposed to do. And she's, cutting up paper and coloring things. And I said to her, you have to pay attention in math. And she said, but it's boring. And I was like, oh my gosh, just, so it's been a real challenge. And I think part of it is, we went from, I'm calling it a house of cards. So for women wanting to have it all, we all read the Sheryl Sandberg book, and we all leaned in, and we all asked for the things that we wanted, and we all continued to do the things that we wanted. And to do that, we had to build a house of cards. And in some cases, we have family in town who can help with childcare or aftercare. Sometimes we have to pay for after school care. We may have a cleaning lady that comes once a week. Whatever it is that we are able to afford, or however we're able to build our village, is how we did it. But when everything got shut down, we couldn't use our village. We couldn't see our parents. We couldn't see grandparents. We couldn't have the cleaning lady come. We couldn't, nothing. You couldn't even go out to eat. So now you're cleaning your house, you're grocery shopping online, you're making every meal, you're doing laundry 16 times a day because nobody freaking leaves your house. And you're trying to run a business, and you're trying to teach school at the same time. And the house of cards just went, and everybody was like, what is happening? And you would think that it's gotten better. It hasn't, because either schools are not fully in, you're on some sort of hybrid. We've had an experience where we went back hybrid in January. We had February break 3 weeks later. We went back to school for 2 days, and then we had to quarantine for 2 weeks because a little boy tested positive. We went back to school 2 weeks later, which was a week ago. And then 2 days later, we got a phone call saying we're going to have to quarantine again. So now we're in quarantine again. And then spring break is later this week and all of next. So even though you may have kids in school, the mass chaos, it's chaotic. And you don't have a routine, and you don't have any time to function, and like, even you had this experience where you said to me, can you do this time or this time? And I'm like, you should see, like, I literally precariously put together something for today so that I don't
feel bad. I feel so
no,
bad.
you shouldn't feel bad. I feel
Instagram
bad.
Live, 24 hours. How about 18? How about 12? And you're like, listen, you're getting 1.5 hours from me.
Right.
Be grateful, damn it.
I felt so bad because I literally put together very precariously the time for us to be together for this hour and a half today. And that's it. That's all I have. So it's been it's been interesting. I definitely don't want to go back to the rat race or the hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it, because I think, to your point earlier, we have definitely learned some things about ourselves and what's important, and, you know, where we think we wanted to live our lives. But I also need my kids in school full time.
So where do you think it you know, when the dust settles, what does the new situation look like? You know, and let's focus on women, because I think what you spoke about is it's so honest. You know, it's so honest. I sit here every day, you know, and yesterday I went to bed at 1 a.m. Every day seems to be getting longer now, and there's still complete joy, but I find myself now with the workload, I'm at my laptop at 7 a.m. and I literally have to force myself to go to sleep now. I'm doing nothing but work at the moment, trying to now say, all right, year 1 is done, year 2, I've got to grow this, got to make a go of it, got to get it to the next level. Everyone's counting on me. But the reality is, the person that really has it the hardest in our household is my wife. Mm-hmm. Because it's exactly what you said. I'm not doing the washing and the ironing. I should be, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. And it's in addition, and she's working on getting her own business off the ground. So I almost wonder if you can have it all. First of all, it's the right idea. It's the right sentiment. Why shouldn't anyone have it all? But specifically women that haven't been given equal opportunities, and in fact have had to, you know, deal with unfair disadvantages. But now, is it too much? Is it just too much? Because I think you're saying something's got to give. What gives, though? And how can we, you know, the men in their lives, in your lives, how can we help?
I think
this is trash. Besides that, I'm doing that.
Yeah. Take out the trash. I think it's for that phrase of having it all, where I am right now, and certainly my thinking continues to evolve on this, but where I am right now is that having it all really means you get to make the choice. It doesn't mean that you have to be the maid and the laundress and the chef and the shopper and the teacher and the breadwinner and. It means you get to choose. Do you want to be the breadwinner? If that's the case, then we have to delegate the rest. Do you want to be the chef and the home caregiver? Great, then we'll delegate the rest. So I think that, and I've been studying a lot about feminism and you know, like Gloria Steinem and the women that came before us, and really the whole point for them in building this opportunity for women, it was that you got to choose. You didn't have to stay home and take care of the kids if you didn't want to. You don't have to have kids if you don't want to. You don't have to get married if you don't want to. Like, you know, just 50 years ago, you had to do those things. Those are the things that women had to do. And I think it's now about the choice. And before all of this happened, we didn't really feel like we had the choice. We felt like we had to do it all of it. And I think now we're at the point of realizing that not only is it not possible, but let's have the choice to say, gosh, you know what? I'm going to take a sabbatical because I can't do all of this and stay sane. And so I'm going to take some time off. And if that means it means that I'm going to not have the same job when I come back, it means I'm not going to have the same pay scale. I've made that choice. And would I like to see women leave the job workforce and come back and be able to be paid the same and have the same? Of course. But I don't think that's realistic. So I think having it all today means you have the choice to do what it is that's best for you and the best for your family.
I mean, it's such a powerful idea, and it is empowering. It is absolutely empowering when you realize that actually you, me, us, we are in control if we take control.
Right.
And if we recognize that there are, of course, some things that are out of our control, and there's some things that are out of control in general.
Sure.
But it's taking back, and it is the first step. By the way, Tom said, I love this. He said, when you have it all, then too often the all has you.
It's a really great point.
Yeah,
Tom's my new best friend. I love him.
He is mine too. It's the be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking of wishing for things, I'm sure you wish that peons would go away. Paid, earned, owned, and non-media. Well, first of all,
I don't wish that peons would go away.
First of all, the fact that you are the person who came up with this absolutely brilliant model. I mean, I got to tell you, by the way, Tom says Gini is my new bestie also. That, if I have one dream and only one dream, and people saying like, how will you be remembered? That was last week's question. For me, it's the fact that I could, like, my flipped funnel, my models, my frameworks actually become mainstream, that it becomes that's all I want. All I want is just one of my godforsaken frameworks. But you created this incredible paid, earned, owned, and shared model. And I just think it's amazing because, it encapsulates digital, social, and all of these platforms that have come forth since. I just happened to, without even knowing it, and I felt like I was just trying to make a statement, and that's why I said, you know what? I wasn't even replacing shared. I was looking at the time. Remember, it used to be paid, earned, and owned, and I think the innovation was shared. My addition was non, which is, why does everything have to be media?
Fair.
But I would love to hear your thoughts about, the genesis of this model. How is it being applied today? How are we doing? What is the high road look like? What does the low road look like? Because so much, as you know, is social media has sometimes been confused with equals earned media, equals PR, equals free, SH1T. But so, as the creator, I would love to hear your reflections now. How many years on from when this was introduced?
8. Whew.
So 8 years later, kind of, what is the scorecard now? How are we doing?
It's interesting because you say that you want to have your framework mainstream, and that's what you want to be remembered by. And I wish that I had strategically thought that whole thing through. There are lots of things I would do differently, like have it copyrighted, immediately before it went out.
You think the phrase "join the conversation," maybe?
Right. Yeah. But it wasn't some strategic thing. It was just, I was writing the book Spin Sucks in, I guess, 2013. And as I was writing the book, I started to talk about the process that we used internally for our clients. And we really were, one of the biggest challenges that I've had in growing a PR firm is that everybody says, oh, you run a PR firm. Well, I want to be, when Oprah was here in Chicago, I want to be on Oprah. So you're in Chicago, you must be able to do that. Or I want TechCrunch to cover me, or I want to be in the New York Times. And they don't consider that, you can't just be in all those places all of the time. Like, you might get one story in the New York Times in your whole business lifeline. Like, it's not something that happens all the time. And so one of the most frustrating things that I had happen as I was growing this business was that clients were getting really frustrated between the ups and the downs. So you would get the Wall Street Journal, and then you would have, you wouldn't have anything. And then you'd get the New York Times, and then you wouldn't have anything. And so we were trying to find ways to sort of fill in the cycles so that there was something happening all the time. And we were generating leads and measuring the results that of the efforts that we were putting out. And so I was writing the book, and I talked about that. I talked about how, we were using all of these different media types to be able to fill in those holes and measure the work that we were doing so that we could prove to our clients that we were an investment, not an expense. And I had just had, the Great Recession happen, where marketing's the first thing that goes. I mean, we lost 90% of our clients during the holidays of 2008 to, going into 2009. It was horrendous. And so I had that in my rearview mirror, and I started to think about, if we could prove that they can't live without us, what does that look like? And so it was born. And I will give props to my publisher, may she rest in peace. But she said to me,
I hope you didn't dream of her.
I did not. This was before
15
that.
days before.
Yeah, it was before. It was actually quite shocking. It was very, very sad. But she said to me, do you have a name for this? And I was like, oh, right. Branding 101. We should have a name for this process. So we went through it, because usually we would use owned first, and then we'd go to earned or shared, and then we'd go to paid, right? But you can't EOS, like it didn't. So we rearranged the letters so we had an acronym that people would remember. That's how strategic that was. And then she said, do you have an image for this? And I was like, no. So I had to hire a designer to create the image. And then that's how it was born in the book. And it just I didn't expect that it would take off. I didn't expect that people would be like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense. And I think what happened was, you can put this image up on a screen when you're presenting to an executive, and they get it. They're like, oh, it's not some dark arts magic that goes on behind the scenes, and I don't really understand it. I actually understand what's all involved in it. Now, certainly there's, this is just a list of tactics. There's some strategic oversight that has to accompany it. But I think that that's what happened, is people were able to solidify in one image, this is everything that we can do from a communications and marketing perspective.
It also, what made this so powerful was that you had paid, which really was the incumbent advertising. You had earned, which for the most part was thought of in relation to PR and publicity.
Yep.
And then you had this kind of this explosion of everything from, social media, which has been a phenomenon second to none.
Right.
And even the whole app economy, this idea of, because that is a brand's, owned asset. Quite frankly, so is a website. When I wrote Zero, speaking of acronyms, Zero paid media as the new marketing model, ZERO, zealots, entrepreneurship, retention, and owned assets. And as I said to people, I don't think advocacy is earth-shattering or new. I don't think entrepreneurship or innovation is. I don't think customer centricity is. But the concept of being, I called it even being diversifying your portfolio, that brand should be asset managers. That is a new idea.
It is
new thinking that actually says, do you want to be a landlord or a tenant? And when you are a tenant and your landlord is a slumlord, Facebook, then sorry, frog in my throat. That's what. So
fair, yeah.
Then I think with your approach, there was owned and then there was shared. And I think what shared really did, I don't know that even people realized how powerful it was, because shared was not actually the same as owned, right? You have this blog and people share it. It really was community. Mm-hmm. That's really it was word of mouth. Yep. It was community. For me, in a way, what it was doing, shared, was it was helping us not just connect the Venns, but connect the dots and create this virtuous circle and cycle. And that's why the PESO makes so much sense. I still don't think people quite get it.
I agree with you.
Think of shared as in tell a friend, viral marketing, you know. They're still looking at it tactically as opposed to strategically.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they look at the whole PESO models tactically versus strategically. 100%.
So where do you think it goes now? And now in this world of of Clubhouse and whatever comes out of this period of time, it maybe we put our peons, and our pesos together, and we add, or you add, why should I say we? That's being very presumptuous. But maybe it's time to rethink the model and trademark it, I might add.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I've also been thinking about internal communications too, because I was so focused as I was building this on external, how do we help a client? And truthfully, I mean, most of the work we do is B2B. So how do we help a client generate the right kinds of leads that can then be nurtured into sales qualified leads? And then we can measure our efforts to actual money. So that was the genesis of it. But now I've been thinking about, how do you bring in internal communications with employees, and how do you bring in values-based marketing? How do you bring in the non-media kinds of things? So I agree. I think there's some evolution there for sure.
And I would also add one more thing as you rethink it. I certainly will embrace it and share it and climb up to the highest church steeple and sing it. But there's culture as well. And I think I think it's very, very astute by bringing in the internal customer, right, which is the employee, but also recognizing that every impression, because this is, the universal currency here, or the dial tone, the oxygen here, the red thread is an impression.
Sure.
Whether the impression is measurable or not, whether it's employee centric or customer centric, whether it's paid or not. And I think every time culturally, even when we think of conscious capitalism, every time something is said that reinforces your position positively, that's also a qualitative impression versus one that then almost detracts.
Absolutely.
We always assume that more impressions is better than less, but not when they're negative, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of cool stuff there, and I'm ready for 2.0. Make sure you trademark it.
Oh yeah. So I have an attorney working on that. Yes.
Exactly. You got people.
I have people now. I did not have people back then.
Now, just in the time we have left, I wanted to go back to. It's funny that you actually said that you've been inspired by Mr. George Tannenbaum, who's been on the show, right? And I just loved him and the whole conversation.
He's so cranky, and I love it. I love it.
Right, he's awesome, and I love how he's just stuck it to the man. So
he is, yeah.
Right? But what? One of the things, in addition to everything you've had to deal with, right? Running a business, running a household, running running from dead people, or running from your
maybe they're running from me.
Yeah, exactly. But you've almost rededicated yourself to the R&Rs, right? To not just writing, but specifically reading. And I just thought it'd be nice to just have a little insight from you, a little nugget on what that journey has looked like, and what it's meant to bring in that rigor, the habit and the discipline of reading every night.
So in March, everything happened, and I stopped reading. I couldn't, and I stopped writing as well. And if you look back at the blog, you won't notice that I stopped writing, but I was repurposing a lot of content because I just didn't have. I couldn't focus. I didn't have any creativity in me. I couldn't. It was, my brain was just not functioning. And for me, somebody who's read my entire life, and for somebody who majored in English literature and would hide in the stairwells of the dorms so I could read, to stop reading and not be able to focus on just a word on a page it really shook me to my core. And so I let it go for a couple of months, and I kept trying. And finally I just said to myself, like, just let this be. And in May, I decided I'd had enough. And so I said to myself, you're going to read a chapter every day. That's just it. And you have to read the chapter, whatever it happens to be, before you can do anything else, meaning watch, binge The Queen's Gambit, or, whatever happens to be. And so I started down that process. And in some cases, I had to really struggle. And in some cases, I'm still really struggling through it. And in other cases, I'm just like consuming as much as I can, and I don't have to binge watch anything on Netflix. And it has afforded me the opportunity to become creative again. And I think it was just, and I've started writing again, which I started doing in January. I started, although I will say that I was writing 10 articles a week and I'm down to 2. But I'm giving myself the grace on that because I think some of the stuff that I'm creating right now is a bit more significant than I was doing in the past. At least I think so. But that has afforded me the opportunity to be able to be creative and start to, really give myself some grace a little bit just by having that one habit of saying 1 chapter a day. You can do 1 chapter a day. And I have not missed a single day. I know that because the Kindle tells me so.
It's amazing. And it absolutely is reinforced by James Rollins, who was on the show months ago. And he spoke about, in addition to writing every day, which of course is a writer's best practice,
right?
He spoke about the importance of reading every day. And he said, look, it's up to you. It depends, for me, it might be a word. It might be half a page. It might be like, I just don't have the time. For you, it might be 5 pages or a chapter, but it's just so critical.
It's
so critical.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that with us. There is one more thing 2 more things before you go. First of all, I just want to thank Glenn and Manif, who have donated Jaffe coins to me while the show.
Wow.
Eventually that will be live on the show, and you will see when somebody donates, it will come up live on the screen. But I appreciate you guys. Clearly, they're not doing it for me. They're doing it for you, Ginny. They're like saying, Ginny deserves the Jaffe coins because of her brilliant PESO model. But Gini Dietrich is the founder and author of Spin Sucks. You can connect with her on Twitter. You can connect with her on Instagram. You can connect with her on Clubhouse. You can connect with her on LinkedIn. Basically, you can connect with her on social media. More importantly, you can get PESO Model certified. So you've got a certification course or program with Syracuse. What do people do? Tell us a little bit about what that certification program looks like.
It's actually really intense and it's not easy. I think people go into it thinking that it's sort of like a HubSpot or a Hootsuite certification where you just go through and you learn a couple of new things. It's not. It's really intense. And part of the reason is because we're changing your mindset around how you do these kinds of things. And so it is intense. I will tell you that up front. It's 8 modules. You're meant to do 1 module every week, but we have found that it takes longer because it is so intense. And then when you're finished, when you pass, there's a quiz at the end of every module, and then there's a certification test. And once you've passed that, you have the PESO Model certification, which is stamped by Spin Sucks, of course, and the SI Newhouse School for Public Communications at Syracuse, which is pretty cool. So you're essentially getting a certificate from them without having to go back to grad school.
Amazing. Really amazing. And by the way, Tom says, I'd be reading right now if Ginny and Joe weren't so. And Chip says, Ginny is definitely certified.
Yeah, Chip.
Oh, see, I was thinking, like, why is Chip being extra chippy today? But I didn't realize you knew each other. But that explains a lot.
Yeah.
Because normally he only keeps the zingers for me. And then finally, of course, you can buy a Spin Sucks communication and reputation management in the digital age. I have pasted a link to the Amazon page in the comments. 2 more things to do today, Ginny. Your quote of the day. There's always a quote. And this is your quote. It is short and sweet. The secret of having it all is loving it all. And that was said by Joyce Brothers, American psychologist. So, as long as you're loving it all, as long as the passion is there, maybe the choice is to go for it and do it all. Ginny, loved the time together. I'm going to give you, I'm going to open up the Clubhouse room. But before I do, I'm just going to ask you one more question. It's, in 30 seconds or less. Here is your question of the week. What is the single thing in your professional life you're most proud of?
I mean, I've grown I've built a business. I've built a business that provides for lots of people, for my family and lots of other families. That's pretty incredible.
I would have to agree with you on that one. Gini Dietrich, you might be a guest number 223, but it was well worth waiting for. And don't just take my word for it, but also, of course, Mr. Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
We will now head into
Amazing.
off the show take, everyone. And we're gonna do a little thing which is basically just end the show now with our tagline. Boom. Think responsibly. Goodbye, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow.